Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, Surah Al-Baqarah, chapter 2, and we will go through verses 80 to 86. The account of Bani Israel, part 5. The need of understanding the cause through the law of requital. So we will go through quite a bit of detail under the functioning of the law of requital under verse 85. And these are the references I have highlighted over here, that some of the excerpts are quoted from this volume. There is a lot more in this volume, so I will suggest that we should go through it in our own time. This is our contact. Now the first slide is some reflection on the needs of the human self. I added this slide to reiterate some of the aspects in terms of needs of our self-development, and I thought we should reiterate it in order to remind ourselves. We need to come to grips with the central theme of the Quran, i.e., it is addressing the human psyche to make it realize the importance of its creation. And this is a point which we should always keep in mind till it is deeply embedded in our psyche, that Quran is addressing our intellect. Quran is not addressing our body. Quran is not interested what gender we have, what kind of a face we have, what kind of a color we have, what kind of a race we possess, where we are born. It is addressing each one of us at our psychological level, and how to get the best out of the immense potentials which are kept within each human child. There are two aspects of our existence: the physical body and its needs. For example, a balanced diet, good exercise, good hygiene, a neat and clean environment, etc. helps us to keep our body fit. This helps to live life up to the time of physical death. And that is an important point for us to remember. My body will take me to the point of its own death. After that, I'm going to enter into a new phase of life. The second part is the human self, whose growth is predicated on our thoughts, and these include desires and emotions, our values, our decision making. The human self also has needs which can take it beyond physical existence, and these are defined by the Quran. The needs of the human self are not like hunger and thirst, which arise automatically. This is another very important point for us to remind ourselves, that we work on our own self, the center of which is our own I, me. And all these needs which are defined by the Quran, these don't arise automatically. We have to create them. We have to have a desire for them. The fulfillment of these is through our I, by seeking the guidance of the Quran, i.e., if we do not come to the Quran by using our power to choose, then those potentials which need to be identified first and then through actions, that is amal, brought out, will not automatically emerge in ourself. This is called the development of the human self. And what we mean by automatically, because in our physical domain, when we feel thirsty, we go out and drink water. We don't bring thirst into us, it arises from within us as an instinct. Similarly, the case of feeling hungry. But in the case of needs of the self, these do not arise automatically. We have to trigger them by using the Quranic value system. And this is a very important point which we should take from today's presentation. How does it work in practice? The Quran states that you need to become dissatisfied with the state of human affairs around you under the governance of all the man-made systems, and then through self-questioning over a period of time come to the book of Allah. Again, we have to dissatisfy ourselves with the system in which we are living in order to come to the Quran. This need or this desire to be dissatisfied with that, we have to create ourselves after looking at the signs all around us. It is not a journey of one day, but a commitment for the rest of one's life. And this is another important point to be taken away from today's talk, is that once we have decided to come here, once we have rejected the system of Taghut, then it is not a question of to be on this path as and when we like. It is a journey of 24/7 on this path as companion of Allah. So this is a point which we should carry away, think over it for next few years, and then decide whether this path is for us or not. Why I'm saying that? Because all members on this platform know about it, but this is for those who are coming after us. If this life of eternal commitment does not emerge in this worldly existence well before our death, then we have not yet grasped the needs of ourselves. Let me repeat it. If this life of eternal commitment, that is eternal commitment on this path called Sirat al-Mustaqim, does not emerge in this worldly existence well before our death, then we have not yet grasped the needs of ourselves. In order to take it beyond the physical death of its carrier, that is the physical body. With this in mind, we will go through today's presentation or session. We go to the first verse of today's talk, dealing with the religious psyche. وَقَالُوا لَن تَمَسَّنَّ النَّارُ إِلَّا أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَةً قُلْ أَتَّخَذْتُمْ عِندَ اللَّهِ عَهْدًا فَلَنْ يُخْلِفَ اللَّهُ عَهْدَهُ أَمْ تَقُولُونَ عَلَى اللَّهِ مَا لَا تَعْلَمُونَ. And while we are going through this verse, we should keep in mind that what was discussed in our previous 4 presentations are 4 parts in which Quran is addressing Bani Israel and their issues with their own selves. This self-deception of theirs has reached to such an extent that never mind anything else, they are not even wary against deceiving themselves. Hence, they are sitting thinking that we can do whatever our hearts wish, we will not be held accountable for it. And this is the one most important aspect of our living this finite life, that human beings think that they can get away with whatever they are doing. And this is the cause of what is going on. For example, we are hearing about Epstein files across the world. And at the very most, we will remain in hell for a few days, i.e. only for that period of time until our intercessors have us pardoned by Allah. And this is very important. So they think that they can get away with it. And even if they don't, they will only stay in hell for a few days, and that will be the end of it. And these kind of beliefs exist under all religions. Ask them, do you have some commitment from Allah regarding this? And this is absolutely an outstanding question of fact, which Quran has put before us. If this is the case, then you are speaking correctly, because Allah does not turn away from His commitment. But this is absolutely not the case. You say those things about Allah for which you have no knowledge or proof. The next slide is, human beings make wrong assumptions and thus fail to benefit from the Quranic guidance in this finite life. Here the Quran has pointed to the erroneous human psyche, where they do not wish to give up their wrong Batil path despite witnessing the destructive outcomes, and try to justify their accountability by stating, وَقَالُوا لَن تَمَسَّنَّ النَّارُ إِلَّا أَيَّامًا مَعْدُودَةً. Fire will only touch us for a few days, and then some kind of intercession will save them. This is a recipe for self-destruction, and this kind of mentality has turned this world of today into hell. These beliefs are prevalent in all religious domains as well as within the domains of secular beliefs. Due to their God being loving and merciful, and we heard these kind of words that God is loving, merciful, compassionate, He is forgiving. He will not let them burn for long. And interesting is that why should you burn yourself even for a few days? And that is the interesting part, that they think that they might burn for a few days, and in fact deep down they think this hereafter and accountability is all nothing. This viewpoint emerges from a mentality of absence of any self-accountability. Implicit in this verse for Mu'mineen is that why do these people wish to live a life of constant fear of fire when you are presenting the blueprint of a life free from fear and huzn? And that is another important point for us to understand this kind of faulty, evil psyche in which human beings are not holding themselves accountable and turning this world into a hell full of fear and huzn. We have gone through this aspect previously as well. This is because deep down they have no Eimaan in the life of the hereafter, and so they do not hold their own selves accountable. These kind of utterances and words we listen from those who are under sectarian form of Islam. And this is just, they want to get some kind of self-satisfaction that I'm sinful, I'm criminal, I'm making mistakes, but Allah is all forgiving and His affection and mercy is for everyone. And these kind of false hopes, they breed in themselves, and the outer world keeps becoming hellish with every passing day. Then the Quran tells them that due to this false concept of Allah, you hold on to a Batil belief. And we know Batil means those beliefs which never produce anything constructive. They always produce negative effects in the outer world. And so live a life of Batil, which leads to finding nothing in the hereafter once this earthly life comes to an end. The correct concept of Allah is that everything follows His laws as spelled out clearly in His book, and that He never goes against His laws or His promise. This is what mu'mineen do. This point becomes evidently clear if knowledge of the Quran is acquired using intellect and reasoning. And as Allah keeps His promise, so do mu'mineen. And this is another important point if we want to get best from our own life. We go to the next verse, verse 81. Not recognizing the existence of ourself leads to making erroneous assumptions about the hereafter. Bala man kasaba sayyi'atan wa ahatat bihi khati'atuhu fa ulaika ashabun nare hum fiha khalidun. Who told you that intercessions work in the presence of Allah? No one's intercession can work there, nor does he have any favorite nation. His immutable law is that whichever nation disobeys the divine law, with the result that the whole of society becomes filled with wrongs, and there is mischief in every direction. These are the people whose fields will burn to ashes, and they will be destroyed and ruined. And over here we should concentrate on these three words, hum fiha khalidun, and we will discuss it and amplify it slightly later. The selves emerging from such a society will remain undeveloped and will continue their life in the same condition in the life of the hereafter. Next verse is 82. The enduring and eternal recipe of Eimaan and Saleh deeds contributes to eternal self-development. وَالَّذِينَ آمَنُوا وَعَمِلُوا الصَّالِحَاتِ أُولَٰئِكَ أَصْحَابُ الْجَنَّةِ هُمْ فِيهَا خَالِدُونَ. Again, these three terms, hum fiha khalidun, to be kept in mind, which have appeared at the end of both these verses. In contrast to them, whichever nation maintaining a conviction in the law of Allah follows a program which develops potentials, these people will achieve a life of paradise and their fields will always be thriving. And we have gone through Amanu wa Amilu Salihat many times, and in fact we have discussed it under permanent values as well. The selves which become developed in such a society will continue with their blissful life at the level of a developed self in the hereafter. Applying collectively to the nations in the word of 2026. Whichever nation disobeys the divine law and makes this conduct prevalent so that the whole of society becomes engulfed in wrongdoings and chaos appears everywhere, the fields of this nation will become reduced to ashes and those people will become destroyed and ruined. And we, on this platform, once we have developed ourselves, we should never ever have any sympathy for these people who create hell in the world for the fellow human beings. Their abode will be hell. In contrast to them, whichever nation having conviction in the truth of the law of Allah follows the potential developing program, then a life of paradise will be achieved by these people, both in this world and in the hereafter. And their pastures will always be prosperous. This is the law of requital of Allah. One or two points about the meaning of the word amal, that is singular is amal. We have gone through this previously as well, but I included it just to remind ourselves and because it was relevant to the last verse which we went through. Merit elaboration. Both amal and fail mean an act. Amalun is every one of those actions which any living creature carries out deliberately. In contrast to this, the word failun can also be used in relation to animals when they do something without any intention. It can even be applied to non-living things, whereas the word amalun is rarely applied to them. The linguist Muhit has also quoted the statement of some linguists that amalun is actually the inverted form of ilmun. Therefore, knowledge is intrinsic for an amal. So that fail will become an amal once there is a deliberate decision making behind it and it is based on knowledge. Furthermore, according to linguists, for an amal, it is also a requirement that the act should not have been executed impulsively, but that it is generally performed as a necessity. Continuing with further elaboration on these two verses, an amal is that act which is carried out with intention and as a necessity. The word amal will not be applicable to those acts which are carried out habitually or mechanically, nor to those acts which are carried out occasionally. On this basis, you can assess for yourself what kinds of acts are indicated by those acts which the Quran has termed as amal. These are those very acts from which positive and constructive outcomes emerge, and Jannat is the result of these very acts. And this reality will also become apparent from this, why the edifice of Jannat cannot be raised on religious amal. And this is a very powerful statement put down over here, why the edifice of Jannat cannot be raised on religious amal. So all this religious domain can never ever turn this planet Earth into any kind of Jannat. These acts are carried out ritually, traditionally, or in obedience to forefathers. Therefore, even according to the lexicon, they do not fall into the category of amal. And it is obvious that an act on which even the word amal cannot be applied, what can its outcome be? The meanings of the root of the word khalidun, and the root is here, khulud is something enduring over a long time, something staying unchanged in one condition for a very long time in itself, by becoming attached to someone and remaining stuck to it. The basic meanings of this root are stability and to remain attached permanently, i.e., remaining unchanged and sticking with someone. And this is a beautiful definition of this over here, which means once a self has become a new self, it has acquired a new life under the permanent values, it is not going to go back to its previous position, as they say, position ante. In the Quran, Khalidun, in relation to this, life will mean that if divine laws are followed, then the state will remain that which is given in the book. That is, we can check it using the criterion of the Quran. And in relation to the life of the hereafter, that state of being mu'mineen will continue for eternity in the hereafter. So I will add few lines over here that both these verses have ended up with hum fiya khalidun, and these point to the conversion of self. If a self has opted the path of evil, a batil, then this self in itself become batil. So it can't be changed. Once death comes and it enters into the new domain, it will remain in that state because it will remain like that. I will illustrate it with an example. For example, a self which was a doctor here in this world, but did all batil deeds. And at the time of death, nobody can take away that part of this self which was a doctor. So in the hereafter, it will have the same aspects of itself which were related to being doctor in this world. So nobody can take that away. And at the same time, it will also retain that batil part of it which it chose to become. That state of being mu'mineen will continue for eternity in the hereafter. And same goes for those who become mu'mineen here, come together, unite their hearts, stay on this path for the rest of their life. And whether deen is established or not, but leave this world with that self, hum fiya khalidun, in their case will be that that self will continue on to the next life with that highly developed self. We go to the next verse, 83, what it means to have a covenant with Allah. Now in this verse, Quran says, وَإِذَا أَخَذْنَا مِيثَاقَ بَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ لَا تَعْبُدُونَ إِلَّا اللَّهَ وَبِالْوَالِدَيْنِ إِحْسَانًا وَذِي الْقُرْبَى وَالْيَتَامَى وَالْمَسَاكِينِ وَقُولُوا لِلنَّاسِ حُسْنًا وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ ثُمَّ تَوَلَّيْتُمْ إِلَّا قَلِيلًا مِنْكُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ مُعْرِضُونَ. I have highlighted two aspects, La ta'buduna illallah, and then Aqimus salata wa atuz zakata as part of the Islamic system of deen. Your covenant with Allah was not this, that whatever you keep doing, you will not be questioned about it. Your covenant was that you will not follow the laws and commands of anyone other than Allah. That is, you will bring yourself under the commands of Allah, and then you will reap the benefits of being under these permanent values. You will treat your aged parents with kindness. In addition, you will treat your relations and those people whose functioning, commerce halts and the train of their life stands still, all in such a way that their deficiencies become compensated. And in this way, the balance in society does not become distorted. And we can see the tense over here is collective. Whole of Bani Israel are being addressed. You also made this commitment that you will always deal with people in a pleasant manner and will instill good counsel in them. Furthermore, that you will establish such a system in which all individuals will fully obey the laws of Allah and the means for their sustenance will keep reaching them. But after this commitment, you began to seek paths of evasion, and barring a few, all abandoned the straight path and began to tread on the other path. This was not a matter of chance. Your psychological condition itself had become like this, that you set out on other paths after abandoning the divine law. So we will fall under this category, and barring a few. That is, the rest, the majority, in fact, is pursuing the same path without giving any attention to what the Quran says. Next slide is some important constituents of this covenant with Allah reiterated here. Here the direct addressee are Bani Israel and of course all Muslims, the people of the book, and then there are verses these and these. We have covered these verses 17, 23 to 41. The Jamaat-e-Momineen are also reminded about a number of constituents of this covenant of becoming a Mu'min and a Muslim. This covenant should be linked with the covenant, Inna Allah ashtara minal mu'minina anfusahum wa amwalahum bi anna Allahumul jannata. Allah has purchased of the mu'mineen their persons and their possessions, and in return is Jannat. We should keep in mind that wherever Quran says that we had made a covenant with that becomes compulsory, not mechanically, that we say, oh, I have to accept it. What Quran is saying is that the way you make a covenant with someone else within the human world, that is willingly, happily, and then, for example, you're buying something and you give money happily and then bring back with the pleasure of using that thing. Similarly, in fact, at a higher level, you should enter into a covenant with Allah, because Allah is asking us to carry out all the responsibilities and duties which Allah has taken on Himself in His book. And this cannot be carried out unless we enter into an extremely formal, unwritten covenant with Allah. The point to note is that in the human world, Allah acts through the hands of human beings who volunteer to become mu'mineen by willingly take over His responsibilities to mankind who are given choice and intent. And this is the most beautiful thing over here, that it is choice and intent. It is our choice whether to enter into a covenant with Him. But once we have entered into a covenant with Him, then it becomes incumbent on Allah that He is going to help us. That is, His law is 100% going to help us in fulfilling that covenant. This is to allow the use of this choice freely, individually and collectively. And of course, we cannot do collectively unless individually each one of us has made that commitment, keeping this covenant in mind. The functioning of the law of requital is explained to tell human beings that all their decisions and actions in the world come with consequences attached to them. As we know, Bani Israel were under the severe subjugation and exploitation of the people of Pharaoh, and a deep desire was formed in the hearts of many to escape this state of misery, fear, and extreme grief. In these circumstances, the messenger Musa arrived with the guidance of the book of Allah. Next slide is further elaboration. In this verse, Bani Israel are reminded again that Allah had taken a covenant from you, that this covenant has already been briefly mentioned under verse 63 as well. It was enjoined there to adhere to the wahi of Allah firmly. The particulars of this command and principle are now presented. The principle has been reiterated by instructing not to adopt subjugation or obedience to anyone else's laws other than Allah. Because we know that what happens under the laws made by human beings. And we can see the word of 2026, that what kind of a word it is. And we have to go to the laws of Allah, that is His laws and values. Only adopt obedience and subordination to His commands, not to those of anyone else. So it is not a blind covenant. It is a covenant which is based on empirical evidence that what is going on in the world around us, and then we make an informed choice where to go by accepting the choice given by the Quran. And as we have discussed before as well, that if we are not aware of the choice given by the Quran, then essentially we are living a life of at animalistic level within man-made system as a system, because we do not have an alternative system before us, which we should either accept or reject using our own choice. In these commands, it states to first of all do ihsan. And ihsan means that wherever people's needs are not met, then we have to compensate it. To parents, relatives, orphans, and the destitute created by Batil systems. Batil systems always create injustices in the world, because the whole system, the whole laws and values are relative and are based on injustice. The very first word in this is parents. The meaning of root is the continuation of lineage through the method of procreation, whether it is at the stage of the first cell or at the ultimate stage of animals, in which man itself is also included. Allah's method of production is creation, not procreation. And this is very important if we want to take it from today's presentation and keep it in mind. Allah's method of production is creation and not procreation. And if we look at our own self as well, our self simply cannot procreate. It cannot create its own self. We cannot pass on the traits of ourself to our children, to anyone. This is why He has stated about Himself that Allah has neither come into existence through procreation, nor does He bring anyone into existence through this method. Self simply cannot be passed on to anyone else. It has its own unity, its own internal integrity. Note, there is no procreation at self's level. Continuing, ihsan on parents. So the next first important point comes in the verses. Among us, by parents is meant only a mother and father, and progeny means sons and daughters. But in the Arabic language, the process of parenthood continues upwards from mother and father, i.e. paternal and maternal grandparents. Very important. There is no distinction of in-laws. Mother's, wife's parents are your own parents. Parents means parents. And the process of progeny extends beyond sons and daughters, i.e. grandsons and daughters. So this is a whole biological family, and if we extend it across the humanity, biologically, whole of humanity becomes one big family, one big brotherhood. The first command is to do ihsan to parents. This means that by removing that deficiency which has emerged in someone, to restore his balance. In old age, a deficiency appears in a human being from many aspects. Weakness occurs in his body functions, and there is also a decline in many other physical abilities. In this way, his physical balance becomes disturbed, and we observe that all around us and within families. The Quran has elucidated this reality in one place in these words. If we grant long life to any, we cause him to be reversed in nature. Will they not then understand? In some people among you, a state similar to that of childhood develops in those who have acquired a long age. Never mind an increase in knowledge, their condition becomes such that whatever they had remembered earlier, they forget that too. For example, in the case of Alzheimer's disease or some other intellectual or cognitive decline in functioning. From these places, it is clear that generally during old age, the power to even fulfill his own needs no longer remains in a human being, and there is a significant decrease in some of his capacities. The Quran has given this command to progeny to compensate for this deficiency. And over here, I will say that these are the commands before the system of deen has been established. Once the system is established, then it becomes the whole land, the whole system becomes one complete unit in which there is no differentiation of progeny and others. The system takes care of it in every respect, physical needs as well as the needs of the self. Needs a bit of imagination to think about it. Why family life? Although a pattern of a life of companionship between a male and a female appears before us in some among those animals at a higher level, the concept of family life is not found among them. There is no family life concept among animals. Biologically, initially, mother or even father might look after their children, but after a while, the whole thing just disintegrates. The consequence of this is that for whatever period of life the offspring needs the nourishment and protection of its mother and father, although a pattern of family life is observable to this extent. When the offspring grows beyond this age, then leaving aside the relationships of family life, neither the child recognizes the parents nor do the parents know the child. And that is the domain of animals. Let us come to the human world. There is total indifference and detachment between them. If this same situation also arises in the social life of human beings, then this will be life at an animalistic level, not that at a human level. Europe has generally maintained family life at an animalistic level, the consequence of which is that as soon as young adulthood is reached, neither the parents retain any connection with their offspring, nor do the children have any connection with the parents. And I have seen this condition within homes. And this is not acceptable. So we have a lot to learn from these human practices under the non-deen system. And the loneliness and helplessness in which aged parents among them spend their life is living evidence for instruction and warning. It is true that some of the governments there make arrangements for the food, clothing, and residence for these destitute, helpless, and discarded human beings, but food and clothing alone are not the support for human life. Human emotions also require companionship, compassion, kindness, and love and affection. They need someone to talk to them, share their worries, share their concerns. They're about to die and leave this life. Share all those frustrations, regrets with them. There is an arrangement there to meet these. Somebody should give them hope as well. These can only be met within the family unit. The correct upbringing of children can also only be within the home environment, and the remedy for the despairing isolation of old age is also only possible here. These and other similar matters are those on the basis of which instruction and direction is given to maintain the integrity of the family unit in an Islamic society. We should go through volume 2. There's a lot more covered in the volume than what I have noted over here. Next slide is expanding this verse further. In relation to obedience to parents, the Quran has made it very clear that obedience must only be to its laws and values. Otherwise, the benefits associated with these will not be obtained. No mixing in its guidance, otherwise the state of the world will be as of today, because then it will become shirk. The Quran has not only rejected obedience to parents, for example, the case of Ibrahim and his father is quoted in the Quran, but it has also warned us against taqleed, that is, following our forefathers, i.e., to keep doing what forefathers did. For example, in the physical domain, humanity as a whole has advanced through inventions and technology, and there is no taqleed here. Because if human beings had followed, that is, they had done taqleed in the case of inventions and technology, we would have still been living in caves. And if we can do that, then in the case of values, solving human problems, once humanity comes to it, we will see that how quickly they will solve the problems of the world. And that is where Quran comes to our rescue when it tells us that this system is bound to come in the world at some future time. After parents, the Quran has commanded doing ihsan to close relations, calling it zil qurba. The root of qurba is given here, which means to be near. Ordinarily, the meaning of this will be to treat those who are closest after the parents with balanced conduct also. But the term zil qurba is generally used for relatives. It should be clarified that qurba does not mean relatives but relationships. So we should keep in mind that wherever this term comes, zil qurba, it means all those relationships which exist within that particular society where we are residing. Because Quran ultimately asks us to expand our area of influence to whole of mankind. After this, it is urged to also treat yatama with balanced conduct. Yatama is the plural of yatim. The fundamental meaning of yatim is that individual who has been left isolated. And this is what the man-made system does. Due to the breadth of meaning of yatim, every one of those individuals will become included in it who has been left alone in society or feels himself alone. Very important, the one who feels himself alone and he knows that he is feeling alone and nobody wants to approach him and talk to him to take away his loneliness. That means the society should have arrangement in place to find out who are feeling lonely. A very big challenge for the system of deen. The next slide is adding harmony, cohesion, and beauty to life. It is also urged to do ihsan to masakin and compensate for their deficiencies. The root of this word is given here, which means the stoppage of movement. For someone to remain static at one place, for no energy to be left to move. We can see that how Quran is addressing both sides of our, that is the physical side as well as the side of our psyche. The meaning generally taken from this will be that those people whose operating business has halted for some reason to compensate for this deficiency of theirs so that the machinery of their business becomes operational again. By keeping this principle in mind, many other aspects of this kind can also appear before us. Note that in these places, the Quran has gone beyond the domain of relatives. In these clauses, every needy human being is included, so much so that in some verses, Ibn al-Sabil has also been added to these, i.e., if some unfamiliar wayfarer is traveling through your land, if he also becomes in need of something, you should fulfill this also. So the system of deen in every city, in every village, in every urban area is welcoming to everyone else coming to their land. In these commands, there is no distinction or the reserving for oneself of us and them. That distinction will disappear. This matter becomes clear from the words in the next verse where it is stated, speak to the people in a goodly manner, that is husn. This will be the standard translation, but from the meaning of husn which has been described earlier and the explanation which has been given previously of the word qawl, it does not just mean to utter good words. Instead, it also includes the importance of maintaining a balance in matters and dealings with other people. In a beautiful and balanced society, every word, every deed, every movement, every step contains a balanced style. A big challenge. Next slide is reflecting on the psyche of disobedience. After this, there is the command to establish salat and execute zakat, whose comprehensiveness has already been discussed. It is necessary to only add that the command for the establishment of salat and the execution of zakat was not only given to the Muslims, this is the foundation of deen. And since deen was continuing as one and the same in principle from the beginning to the end, hence the ummah of every messenger was given this command. It was said to Bani Israel that you had undertaken a covenant that you will comply with these commands, you had agreed to this. But after this, you, accepting a few, turned away from this word and agreement. All this could have been conveyed with the words, Summa tawallaitum. then did you turn back after that. But after this, another reality is referred to when it is stated, وَأَنْتُمْ مُورِدُونَ. You backslide even now. From then did you turn back, the mind turns in this direction, that this is a reference to an isolated incident in some past era, that this incident may have occurred at some point in the past to some generation of the Jews at that time. But by declaring you backslide even now, this issue is made clear that you are simply like this. This has always been your way, that you turn away from making a commitment. And this is a very powerful statement of fact noted over here by the Quran in that era of Islam about Bani Israel. This conduct of yours was not temporary or isolated. Your whole history is a witness to this, that this is what you have always been doing. And despite what is clearly stated in the Quran, these people are still getting bitten by these people, that they keep breaking their promises and commitments. We can see how the ceasefires in Gaza are broken. Due to this, the initial Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen of the era of the revelation of the Quran were warned not to just idly place your trust in the word and commitment and covenants of the Jews. They tend to turn their back on these. And as is evident from other places in the Quran, this is exactly what they did. See how much time the Quran saves us by following its path. And that is why it is Sirat-e-Mustaqim, a straight path. If we don't get distracted on this path, then ultimately it takes us to that place where what we have done earlier on this path, all the good and solid deeds, their results start manifesting themselves. Verse 84, two more important constituents of this covenant with Allah. The Quran says, وَإِذَا أَخَذْنَا مِيثَاقَكُمْ لَا تَسْفِكُونَ دِمَاءَكُمْ وَلَا تُخْرِجُونَ أَنفُسَكُمْ مِنْ دِيَارِكُمْ ثُمَّ أَقْرَرْتُمْ وَأَنْتُمْ تَشْهَدُونَ. You had also made this commitment that you will not engage in mutual bloodshed and will not turn out the weak among you from their homes. You had accepted this and had accepted it, discerning clearly and reflecting and understanding everything. You accept it even now. So the Quran is telling them that it was not something which you entered into this covenant light-heartedly, but it was an extremely serious covenant made with you. Need for reflection by the Muslims of today. Both contraventions are being committed in Gaza, that is Palestine, and the Muslims of today have let it happen by witnessing this rebelliousness. The practice of 5 pillars of Islam is continuing uninhibited 24/7, and during the coming Ramadan, the whole of the Quran will be recited, including the recitation of these verses which we are going through today. I put it down with a very heavy heart. When words are put down on these slides, these really do not convey all the feelings and thinking which is beyond these lines. So I leave it to our members to think about it in their own time. By virtue of possessing an I, we can enter into a covenant with another I. It is only I, that is at the level of me, we enter into covenant with another human being. Otherwise, our body keeps changing as we live our life, whereas our I does not change as we live our life, and this I, that is me, will leave this world for the next one. So that is how we should think of our own self. Allah wishes to enter into a covenant with this I of ours. So over here, all the verses are addressing the I of each of us. Here the Quran has highlighted another 2 important aspects of the human world, the display of which we are witnessing on a daily basis. Technology has made it possible to witness these events across the continents very quickly. This is the same aspect which metaphorically the Quran has noted in verse 30, and we have gone through it. The Malaika stated, Qalu atajalu fiha man yufsidu fiha wa yasfiku dima. This Adam, that is Malaika telling Allah, this Adam whom you are creating, will shed blood and create fasad on planet Earth. And fasad includes every kind of chaos, conflicts, imbalances, wars, which we see in the world of today. Bani Israel were apprised with all these aspects, but they ignored the divine guidance, as the Muslims of today have ignored the divine guidance. At a number of places in the previous verses, Bani Israel are told that Allah had taken this covenant from you, and you had agreed and committed to this. But you turned your back on every covenant of yours, transgressed against every pledge and agreement. In this same connection, it is stated in the verse under view that commitments were also taken from you about two other matters. One was that you will not engage in mutual bloodshed, and the other was that you will not turn out your people from their homes. You had agreed to this too, and it will also be found written in your scriptures. Therefore, you too are a witness to this today, that this covenant was taken from you and that you had agreed to it. And these are the Bani Israel of the initial era of Islam who were being addressed, who were bent upon opposing Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen of that time. Next, verse 85, the consequence of going against Allah's book. Then the Quran says, Summa antum haulai taqtuluna anfusakum wa tukhrijuna fariqum minkum diyarihim tazaharuna alayhim bil ithmi wal udwane wa in yatukum asara tufaduhum wa hum muharramun alaykum akhrajuhum afatuminuna bi ba'dil kitabi wa takfuruna bi ba'd فما جزاء من يفعل ذلك منكم إلا خزي في الحياة الدنيا ويوم القيامة يردون إلى أشد العذاب وما الله بغافل عما تعملون. I have highlighted few parts of this verse, and there is a lot more in it which we will go through now, but we should keep in mind that this verse sets the scene for knowing that what Quran is asking us to do. That is not to accept one part of the verse, one part of the book, and then leave the rest. And that is the basis on which we should understand that what Quran means to us. But after such a firm promise and agreement, you are such that you engage in mutual bloodshed and turn out your poor brothers from their homes. And instead that your society should take some action against these criminals, you assist each other in injustice and tyranny against these poor. Sometimes by making the weak even weaker, and sometimes by encourage these rebellious people. And this is something which Pharaoh used to do to them, and then they started doing to each other. And the irony is that when other people capture and take away these poor people who are turned out of their homes, then you become very compassionate in the name of Allah and have been released after paying a ransom for them, and think from this that you have performed a very virtuous act. And this is going on in the sectarian Islam as well across the world. Even though turning these people out from their homes yourselves was that severe crime from which you were forbidden. Therefore, your condition is such that you have Eimaan in one part of the divine code and deny the other part. Even though the way in which human life cannot be fragmented into pieces, in the same way this divine code also cannot be broken into pieces. Very important point to keep in mind, that Quran has to be taken as a whole and rejected as a whole. Let us not get into any kind of complacency that part of the book we can follow and the rest can be rejected, or at later we can look into it and think that there is some kind of Allah's paradise awaiting us. There is no such paradise awaiting us in the hereafter. If it is accepted, then it is accepted in full. And if it is denied, then the whole of it will be denied. Whichever nation divides the divine code into different parts, and in whichever part a benefit is seen, it adopts this and discards the other, then the consequence of this can be nothing other than that the present life of such a nation will be a life of humiliation and disgrace, and the life of the future will also be brimming with grievous destructions, disgrace in this world and ruin in the hereafter also. أَفَتُؤْمِنُونَ بِبَعْضِ الْكِتَابِ وَتَكْفُرُونَ بِبَعْضٍ. If we can remember it by heart for the rest of our life, that will be important. And verse 285 we should quote to everyone with whom we come across, particularly under the sectarian Islam. This is the essential consequence of this kind of treatment of the divine code. Remember, no deed of yours can remain concealed from the sights of the law of requital of Allah. And that is what it means, وَمَاللَّهُ بِغَافِلٍ أَمَّا تَعْمَلُونَ. He is with us wherever we are, and he doesn't go to sleep at any time. Now let us go to the next slide, 2 big crimes against common humanity. This verse highlights a number of important aspects of the human world, and the Quran provides guidance by pointing to the serious consequences of going against these root causes. Bani Israel were told not to resort to slaying people among themselves, that is mankind, and also not to turn people out of their homes by creating such conditions. And then see this Bani Israel of today, what they are doing to the people of Gaza, turning out of their homes, killing them, destroying their lives. And these sectarian Muslims who are the custodians of the book of Allah, what they are doing, they are abetting them, they are helping them in doing it. And then all of them are going around Mecca saying, Allahumma labbaik, la sharika laka labbaik. The charge level is you disobeyed each of these 2 commands, you engaged in mutual bloodshed, and also turned out your own people from their homes. Here the word qatl is used instead of mutual bloodshed. As has been noted under the exposition of verse 254, the meaning of qatl is to actually kill someone as well as to weaken and humiliate someone and to make someone impotent. That is, the potentials they possess, suppressing those potentials, not letting these potentials come out, not providing them opportunities for those potentials to manifest themselves in this world. And all those who contribute to it, that is, all those who have the potentials to be able to work for the system of Deen, do not do it, are included in this curse, which is noted over here. Since bloodshed is mentioned in verse 84, hence qatl here can also mean bloodshed. But if it is reflected on in the light of what is stated in the next verse, its meaning can also be subjugate and humiliate and to make weak and feeble. While studying this verse, we need to keep in mind that this earth does not belong to any human being. We need to keep in mind that this earth does not belong to any human being. We must try, as students of the Quran, to dissociate ourselves from this land. All that affection for land should be taken out of our head in case we want to work for the system of Deen. Then power will come to be established in some piece of land on this planet. Hence, do not displace people from the land where they are living. And secondly, all of you are going to die. Hence, do not be hasty in killing others. And this is very interesting. The Bani Israel of today, they know they are going to die one day. And they still are enhancing the death of fellow human beings. And nobody is stopping them. Next is expanding a bit further. In this verse, one important principle is described, which is such that it severs the root of the system of Batil. Therefore, it merits profound reflection and attention. The Quran said to the Jews that what you used to do was that by yourselves making a section of your nation poor and deprived, weak and handicapped, you would even turn them out from their homes. These homeless, displaced, dispossessed, weak and destitute people used to be made captive by neighboring powerful tribes. After that, your religious leaders used to deliver this kind of sermon that it is a work of great charity to get these captives released and to earn some kind of salvation and Jannat, which is made for these sectarian Muslims in the hereafter. So in order to earn this merit, that is sawab, you used to mutually collect donations, and by paying the fidya for these captives, you used to get them released from captivity. They were warned that by doing this, you are keeping yourselves trapped in a great self-deception. So Quran is very clear, very blatant, very straightforward, telling us this is black and this is white. You never even stop to think how great and heinous this crime is to cause these people to end up in such a situation in which others can seize them and march them away, and then you run around trying to earn merit by getting these captives released. We should think about it that those people whose pictures we see on the television screens carrying their stuff and with their small children, leaving their homes because those have been destroyed, what feelings they have, how helpless they are feeling on this earth, which is resided by 8 billion people, out of which there are 2 billion plus who are Muslims. You have no qualms when you are committing such a heinous crime, not a twinge of guilt pricks your hearts. You cause these people to end up in this situation without hesitation, and after that you run around trying to earn merits by having them released from captivity. Next slide, the word of man-made systems. This important principle comes before us from this, that causing someone to end up in such a situation to which he becomes dependent on your help or that of others is a supreme crime in the divine system. And this crime is taking place on this planet Earth of Allah because there is no Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen. And then by giving yourself self-satisfaction at helping him and becoming pleased that we have carried out a very virtuous deed. This is nothing more than self-deception. Let us see what a great principle is hidden in this Quranic truth, not only for us, but for the whole world also. Today, the population of the whole world is basically divided into two classes. One class is that of the rich, and the other is that of the poor and indigent. After this, the whole world is continually fretting in this anxiety and appears to be engaged in this supreme jihad, that how can these poor, indigent can be helped. But no one pays any attention to this fundamental question, that how do these two opposing classes of rich and poor come into existence? Because they are all human beings. They are born in the same way. No human child is either rich or poor by birth. You will never have seen that at the time of its birth, any child is born with necklaces of diamonds and pearls around its neck and holding certificates of ownership of lands, factories in its hand, while another child enters the world empty-handed. All children enter the world equally empty-handed, and after this we ourselves make some of these children wealthy and some of them poor. So it is human beings who make them poor and rich. It is human beings who abuse them. It is human beings who kill them and eat up their blood and intestines. It is human beings who do all this to these children, and when these children become elders and adults, these human beings at the top are the ones who exploit them. The children of the wealthy class receive wealth, properties, and lands through inheritance, while children born into the homes of poor parents become their servants and laborers. After this, the owner, the child, that is the child, i.e. the landowner, who has inherited everything, of thousands of acres of land does not work. In contrast to this, his sharecroppers produce grain by toiling and sweating throughout the whole year, and they do not even get enough from this to fulfill their or their children's physical needs of life. So over here we should pause and reflect, and before criticizing any begging human being anywhere in the world, we should reflect inwardly and look at these Quranic verses and think, who has made him a beggar? When he was born as a child, he was not born as a begging child. As the days keep passing, the one who is wealthy keeps becoming wealthier, and these poor people keep becoming poorer. Let us leave. Come to the cities. Here laborers and servants are set to work in mills and factories. The owners of these factories fix the wages of these laborers. That is the elite of today, the capitalist system. They decide. The issue of how these wages are fixed can easily be understood. Next slide is charity, a product of all man-made systems. In this situation, religion steps forward and tells these wealthy people, it is your duty to help these poor people who are created, because these religious people have given justification for that creation to the rich man. that Allah has sent down stringent, emphatic injunctions for sadaqat, charity, zakat, and other welfare tasks. Doing this is an act of great sawab. This wealthy class participates with great pride in works of charity and becomes satisfied that due to this the pleasure of Allah is achieved. Their Allah is achieved, not the Quranic Allah is achieved. The Quran informs them that, oh, those who wish to earn swab by resorting to sadaqah, charity, and zakat to help these poor and destitute ones, just tell us this: who is it that made them poor and destitute in the first place? You first of all make them poor and destitute, and then by helping them, you become very pleased that we are doing an act of great sawab, even though causing them to end up in this condition in the first place was the most heinous of all crimes, though it was not lawful for you to do it to them. And this is a very important part of this verse, which we should, those who understand some Arabic, should quote it to others, these sectarian Muslims. The rationale presented from the direction of the wealthy class and their supporters from the religious leaders is that the landowner has given the land which is in his possession to these tenants for cultivation. Hence, it is his right according to Shariat to get a share from it. Someone could ask them, how did they acquire the right to justify ownership of this land in the first place? All of the land on planet Earth is created by Allah, and He has made it an equal means of sustenance for the whole of mankind. The next slide, reflecting on the finer aspects. To believe the property of Allah as being your property is to become Allah oneself. This point has been elaborated under verse 22. It is asserted about the owner of a factory that he has invested his capital, therefore he has a right to acquire a profit from his capital. No one asks him, where did this capital of the existing owner of the factory or his father or grandfather or the capitalist system come from? This is the outcome of those hours of toil of those same laborers for which they were not paid any wages, or they were paid far less than their due. Moving on from these individual capitalists, the system of the modern day welfare state appears before us. Now we should listen very carefully. In this, the state itself is a capitalist and advises charitable and welfare schemes for the laborers and the penniless to prevent any rebellion of the majority. Those same acts to earn sadaqah and swab, and to keep this majority quiet and to abuse them and use their labor for far less than what they are due. So much so that in that revolution, that is socialism, which is so promulgated in this modern era, the laborers are also paid wages, and the principle and standard for paying these wages is exactly the same as in capitalism. And we hear this kind of talk as well. In this system, if you talk to some rich man that why do you pay them less, and they will say this is a market wage, this is the market price, I can't pay more than that because it will make the whole thing imbalance in the market. And I have heard it with my own ears. The Quran comes with a challenge against the capitalist system and the religious leaders and openly declares that it is this Batil system that is responsible for causing these human beings to end up in this condition of scarcity and deprivation, poverty and indigence, which is devised by the capitalist class and is kept in place with the support of the Batil justifications of the religious leaders. No human being has the right to drive other human beings towards that situation in which he becomes obliged to be dependent on them. In the system established through Deen, no one is dependent on anyone. Details of this system have already been covered in Volume 1 and under these verses. We should go through this part of Volume 1. Itham and Udwan illustrated. These are the two terms used which have appeared in this verse, and these are illustrated over here and explained here. In the verse under view, it has also been stated that this elite echelon is in fact like a brotherhood which establishes a united front against the lower class. And we see this operating in today's world. They call it deep state in every country. People in the upper class help each other in order to remain in authority over the lower class. The Quran has used the words itham and udwan for this help. We have explained earlier that the meaning of itham is those acts which create weakness, and udwan are those acts due to which man exceeds the limits. We can look at the details of these two terms using our Lughatul Quran. It is also given in the glossary in volume 1 and volume 2 as well. This class keeps devising such schemes due to which the powers of the workers and laborers become weakened, and the capitalist class keeps advancing forward. In this way, these people keep strengthening this system of theirs. That is why the rich keep becoming richer and poor keep becoming poorer. Every scheme of theirs is the cause of itham for the workers and of udwan for the capitalists, and the religious leaders provide the Sharia certificate for this. And nowadays, the religious leaders are joined by the media as well, particularly the state-controlled media. No pharaoh can become a pharaoh without a Haman, nor can any Qarun take birth among them. And pharaoh over here represents the ruling class, and Haman is the media and these religious leaders, particularly in the third world. And Qarun is the capitalist part, which is played by corporations and World Economic Forum, and of course, the World Bank and International Monetary Fund. In the verse under review, the Quran has told Bani Israel and has warned the Muslims as well that you first of all push people into this condition where other people make them their prisoners or slaves, and then you give a fidya, payment of ransom, in order to get these prisoners or slaves released. Quran's deen is indivisible. After leveling this charge against Bani Israel, the Quran stated that your condition is such that you have Eimaan in one part of the book and manifest kufr against the other part. They are told that in your book this command was given that do not evict your people from their homes, and also this command that freeing prisoners is an act of great virtue. Your condition is such that though you have Eimaan in this second divine command, you behave with kufr against the first one. This is equal to having Eimaan in one part of the book and rejecting the other part. After this, it is stated that, remember, whoever among you adopts this path, the consequence of this will be nothing other than a life of ruin and humiliation in this world, and becoming engulfed in an even more severe, chastising and mortifying punishment than this in the next world. And all this will be the consequence of their own deeds. Allah will not do any injustice to them, they will do injustice to themselves. Deen bestows a system of life, and the configuration of this life is that it is an indivisible unit whose parts cannot be separated. And when Deen bestows a system of life, then it is obvious that this too cannot be divided into different parts. If it is accepted, then it has to be the whole of it. And if it is rejected, then it has to be the whole of it. So that means the companionship of Allah cannot be divided into parts, that sometimes I can be a companion of Allah when it suits me, and when it doesn't suit me, I'm not his companion. We have to take the Quran as a whole or reject it as a whole and live our life the way man-made system people live their life. This is why it has been stated, O Jamaat-e-Mu'mineen, enter this system fully and do not follow in the footsteps of Shaitan. He is your avowed enemy. And there is no doubt he is a very clear enemy, and we can see that. The meaning of this is that separating parts of Deen is obedience to Shaitan. To accept some parts of the book of Allah and to reject others is kufr, blatant kufr. And its consequence is ruin and humiliation in this life and an extremely painful punishment in the life of the hereafter. And looking at it positively from our own perspective on this forum, here Allah is presenting his book and is saying that I am ready to help you. All you have to do is to stay together, unite your hearts, and go through this system of Deen theoretically first, and at the same time commit to my path with whatever you have, and see how the whole situation turns in your favor. Next slide is transitioning towards Deen from other systems. Now we reach the final link in this process when the system of Deen will be established for the first time, i.e. having abandoned the religious system, we will come to the system of Deen. It will not be established in one day. This will be established in gradual steps. We have gone through this aspect previously as well in a speech, but it is good to remind ourselves. It is obvious that during these phase stages, some parts will be of deen and some things which are non-Islamic will also continue along with these. This state of affairs will not fall within the category of you have Iman in one part of the book and Kufr in the other. This is a very important point from today's discussion, is that once we have acquired Iman and we are doing Saleh deeds to develop ourselves and committed to this path 100% with no doubts, with no suspicion, no reservations, having been fed up with the system of Taghut, then that means we have come to this path intellectually. Now is the time to stay on it and keep repeating this commitment to Allah that I will stay on it till death takes us to the next life. Observe the perfect wisdom of the Quran that it has mentioned the acceptance of Iman here. It has not mentioned the practical establishment of Deen. Very important point over here. This means that whichever nation rises to establish the system of Deen, it will be necessary for it to maintain wholehearted Iman in the truth of this system, that is the Book of Allah. So keeping that in mind all the time, that I am not going to leave this book. I am not going to leave the rope of Allah which I am holding on to. وَتَعْصِمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. After this Iman, it should keep progressing towards the correct system in place of the wrong system, because that is the first stage. The change within our psyche is the first step towards this path. But at every stage, it should bear this truth in mind that this life cannot be called Islamic life yet. So it is not an Islamic life yet. Islamic life will manifest itself when we will get power on the land in some piece of earth created by Allah. We are progressing towards Islamic life. It will be called Islamic at that time when the system of Deen will be established in full and not even a final gasp of any non-Deen element remains in it. So it's a big challenge. And this challenge looks very big, but actually it is an easy challenge once we have accepted that Iman which meets the precise criteria laid down by the Quran. This is a miracle of the Quran, that where it has given commands for the final shape of Deen, it has also provided instructions and laws there for passing through these gradual stages. So Quran will help us. And this is what it means, Allah is with us wherever we are. Quran says that you start taking these steps, come together and never ever think of leaving this path, and then see how things start falling in place. Next slide is cannot benefit by following the Quran partially. So this is the message we should take from today's presentation. The categories of rich and poor will no longer exist in it. The question of the wealthy giving charity and sadaqah to the poor simply will not arise once the system is fully in place. But this differentiation will be present during these phased stages, although its intensity will gradually decrease. The commands which have appeared in the Quran in relation to helping the poor and destitute through charity and sadaqah are regarding inheritance and legacies. Their connection is with these same transitional phases. In complete Deen, the situation will be that no one will have that which is beyond their needs, that is surplus wealth, nor will any individual be deprived of his necessities for life and dependent on the donations of others. And we should start imagining the pleasure of that kind of a system on earth which will become established. And the Quran says, Ashraqatil ardu binuri rabbiha, that with the light of Rabb, the whole earth will glitter, will shine. At this present time under religion, our condition is such that though we have Iman in the verses about sadaqah and charity, we manifest kufr in the command for beyond your needs and keep devising all kinds of interpretations for this in order to delude ourselves, for which there are numerous fabricated ahadith among us. We cannot save ourselves from the law of requital of Allah with this self-delusion, and that law is that those people who have Iman in one part of the book of Allah and reject the other part, the consequence of this will be that they will live a life of humiliation and disgrace in this world and will suffer a severely painful punishment in the hereafter. what kind of a life people are living in which fear and anxiety is everywhere. This is the living example of have Eimaan in part of the book and do kufr in the other part, which we are complying with, and are engulfed in that punishment of humiliation and disgrace which the Quran has declared as being its natural consequence. So the Quran also helps us to identify this humiliation and disgrace and raises us above the level of animals and brings us into the human world. And then from the human world, it gives us new life so that we become mu'min and start understanding what Allah wants us to do in this world on His behalf with His help available 24/7. Last verse of today's presentation, getting the priority right by using the Quran. أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ اشْتَرَوُا الْحَيَاةَ الدُّنْيَا بِالْآخِرَةِ فَلَا يُخَفَّفُ عَنْهُمُ الْعَذَابُ وَلَا هُمْ يُنصَرُونَ. These people behave in this way towards the divine code merely for the sake of their personal interests and sell the prosperities of the future for the sake of the conveniences of physical life. But as has been said above, this life of theirs becomes destroyed and the life of the hereafter is also ruined. And this destruction keeps on increasing and there is none who can help them get out of this condition. This is, in reality, the outcome of that wrong system in which the holders of power and the capitalist elite have free rein to make the poor and the working class ever more wretched by exploiting them. And then by placing a few crumbs of charity and benevolence in their lap, deceive themselves that we are doing a work worthy of great sawab, that is, some kind of an undefined abstract reward. Remember, destructions generated by an evil system cannot be halted by this kind of self-deception. They are bound to come. Thanks for your time and for sharing this today. Please feel free to share it with your contacts. You may like to subscribe for future talks related to the Quranic system of Deen.